All right, for day 4, we're going to talk about the idea of perpendicular lines. And with our theorems here, what I'm going to do is I am going to draw a picture to represent it and then see if we can be able to fill in the blank based upon the picture. Okay, so the very first theorem, it says that if two lines intersect to form a linear pair of congruent angles. So what does that look like? So here is a line, here's a line that intersects it. This angle and this angle are congruent, and together they form a linear pair or a straight line. Well, how is it possible for two angles to basically add up to 180 degrees and be congruent? Well, wouldn't that mean that they both would have to be 90 degrees and 90 degrees, or, in other words, they would both have to be right angles, which means that if they're right angles, then the lines are perpendicular. Okay? In theorem number 2, if two lines are perpendicular, so let's start with this. Here's one line, here's another line. They're perpendicular, and the way we're going to know they're perpendicular, we're going to have that little box. Then they intersect to form 4 blank. Well, what's true about this angle, this angle, this angle, and this angle? Well, if this top one is 90 degrees, well, supplementary angle is 90, vertical is 90, and supplementary is 90. That means it forms 4 right angles. Okay? So that's the idea. Pictures do help. So what can we conclude here? If I look at this example that we've got angle 1 and angle 2, it looks like they're forming a straight line, and angle 2 is 90 degrees. So 2 conclusions that I can draw. That angle 1 is 90 degrees based upon the second theorem here. So angle 1 is a right angle. And the other thing that I can do is, since it is a straight line, I can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2 based upon this theorem. Big idea is we do not assume anything. You have to have that right angle symbol. All right, 3 more. If two sides of two adjacent angles are perpendicular, so this side of an angle is perpendicular to this side of an angle. Okay, the adjacent angles are right here. Okay, so we've got this angle and this angle. If two sides of two adjacent angles are perpendicular, then the angles are blank. What would be true about angle 1 and angle 2? Well, couldn't we say that they add up to be 90 degrees? And if they add up to be 90 degrees, then they are complementary. Okay? All right. Number 4. If a transversal is perpendicular to 2 parallel lines, okay, so we've got a set of parallel lines. I'm going to mark that with my arrows. So parallel, parallel. And the transversal is perpendicular to one of them. Okay, so there you go. So perpendicular, I'm going to put in that right angle. Well, if it's perpendicular to one of them, well, then that means it is going to be perpendicular to the other, because if the lines are parallel, then the corresponding angles are congruent. So it is perpendicular to the other. All right, the 5th one. In a plane, if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, okay, so this line is perpendicular to this line. This line is perpendicular to the same line. So if two lines are perpendicular to the same line, what's true about these two lines? Well, they are going to be parallel. And the reason is, if corresponding angles are congruent, the lines are parallel. Page 2. On this one, reminder that you can only go based upon information given, so we're not going to assume anything. So if I look at R and S, is there any angle on R that relates to S? Well, line R doesn't have anything on it, so therefore there's no way to show that they are parallel. Okay? But now, if I look at M and N, well, line M here has a right angle on it. Line N has a right angle on it. So both M and N are both perpendicular to S. So based upon our one theorem, two lines perpendicular to the same line are going to be parallel. So therefore we should have yes. Okay, next one. S parallel to T. Okay, so I've got S is perpendicular to N. T is perpendicular to N. Since S and T are both perpendicular to the same line, they are parallel to each other, so again, yes. So we're using our theorems. All right, example 3. Can I conclude that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2? The answer is no. And the reason is there's no markings here. The only way I would be able to determine if they were congruent is if I was either given that one of the angles was 90, making the other one 90, or I was given congruent symbols for the angles. The second one, are they perpendicular? Again, the answer is no, I cannot assume. I would have to have a perpendicular angle symbol, and I don't have that. Okay, so big idea, we cannot assume anything, only go based upon information given.